I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually answer it, not just hear it. At 50 years old, how satisfied are you with your relationships? Your marriage, if you have one. Your friendships, how connected you feel to the people who matter. Think about it. I'm serious. Because Harvard researchers spent 85 years following 724 people from adolescence until they died. And when they looked at who was healthy at 80, who had sharp minds and strong bodies, it wasn't cholesterol that predicted it. It wasn't blood pressure. It wasn't genetics. It was how satisfied they were in their relationships at the age of 50. That answer you just gave yourself, that's data. I'm Thomas. Welcome to Golden Years Pulse, where we go through the peer-reviewed science of longevity every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. On Thursday, I told you I'd show you the factor backed by 148 studies and 300,000 people something that has nothing to do with food or exercise. This is it. And it might be the most important thing we've discussed on this channel. In 1938, Harvard researchers made a decision that sounds almost absurd from the outside. They decided to follow people, not for months, not for years, but for the rest of their lives. They enrolled two groups, 285 Harvard College sophomores, privileged, educated, the sons of doctors and lawyers, and 456 boys from the poorest neighborhoods of Boston, families struggling through the Depression. John F. Kennedy was in the Harvard group. Ben Bradley, who would later run the Washington Post, was in the Harvard group, and the Boston Strangler was in the inner city group. But most of these 724 men were not famous. They weren't infamous. They were just people, living lives. Researchers followed them every 2 years. Medical exams, psychological interviews, conversations with their wives and children, for 85 years. Some of them are still alive today. And what the data showed surprised the researchers themselves. Dr. Robert Waldinger, the current director of the study, described the central finding in one sentence. The people who were most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80, not the richest, not the most successful, not the ones who exercised the most or ate the best, the most satisfied in their relationships, and the people who were the most isolated. They showed earlier cognitive decline, earlier physical decline, and they lived shorter lives. Now, Waldinger gave a TED Talk about the study in 2015. It has 50 million views. It is one of the 10 most watched TED Talks in history. I want you to think about that for a second. 50 million people chose to watch a 12-minute talk about relationships and longevity. Why? Because it answered the question every single one of us is already asking. And the data behind that talk is exactly what I'm going to show you now. In 2010, researcher Julianne Holt-Lundstad published a meta-analysis, 148 studies, 308,849 participants. The question, does social connection predict survival? The finding, people with strong social connections have 50% greater odds of survival compared to those who are socially isolated. 50%, and 5 years later, in an expanded analysis with 3.4 million participants, she quantified what isolation costs. Loneliness, the feeling of being disconnected, increases premature mortality risk by 26%. Social isolation, actually having few relationships, increases it by 29%. Living alone, 3.2%. The U.S. Surgeon General's advisory in 2023 stated it plainly. The mortality risk of lacking social connection is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Not smoking a pack, 15 cigarettes, greater than obesity, greater than physical inactivity. And Waldinger himself said, loneliness kills, it's as powerful as smoking or alcoholism. This is not a soft finding. This is not wellness advice. This is mortality data. The same type of data behind every pharmaceutical approved for clinical use. Social connection is a biological force, and most Americans are treating it like a luxury. Now here's where it gets complicated, and more important. Because most people, when they hear social connection, think about how many friends they have, how many people showed up to their birthday, how many Instagram followers, and Waldinger's data says that's almost completely wrong. Lesson 2, the Harvard study found something that complicates the picture. You can be lonely in a crowd. You can be lonely in a marriage. You can have hundreds of acquaintances and feel profoundly disconnected. And you can have 3 or 4 people in your life who truly know you and experience the full protective effect of social connection. Waldinger described this clearly. It's not just being around people. It's the quality of close relationships that matters. High conflict relationships, constantly tense, constantly difficult, are worse for health than being alone. Good relationships don't have to be smooth all the time. Some of our octogenarian couples bickered every day, but as long as they felt they could count on each other when things got hard, those arguments didn't take a toll on their health. Feeling that someone has your back, that's what matters. The question isn't how many people do you know, it's who has your back. Who would know within 24 hours if something went wrong? Not because they saw it on social media, because they know you well enough to notice you're gone. The Harvard study found you don't need many, you need real ones. Quick pause. I'm Thomas, at Golden Years Pulse, every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. If this is landing, subscribe now. Lesson 3 is the one I wasn't expecting, and it connects directly to the brain. Health video from last Thursday. Stay with me. Waldinger said something in his TED Talk that stopped me when I first heard it. Good relationships don't just protect our bodies, they protect our brains. The Harvard study found that people in warmer, more secure relationships in their 80s had sharper memories and healthier brains than those who were less connected. And the people in more isolated lives experienced earlier cognitive decline. We covered the mechanism on Thursday. Social isolation drives cortisol elevation, which drives inflammaging, the chronic low-grade inflammation that damages neural tissue over time. Social connection directly suppresses that pathway. On last Thursday, we talked about brain health, the 7 daily habits that prevent cognitive decline. Habit number 6 was social connection. The Harvard data is exactly why it was on that list. The brain and relationships are not separate topics. They are the same topic. I need to say something directly because this data lands differently depending on where you are. Some of you watching have full, rich relationships. Some of you have been quietly aware for a while that you don't. That somewhere between raising kids, building careers, and just surviving. The friendships got thinner, the calls got less frequent. The list of people who truly know you got shorter. If that's you, this is not a judgment. It's one of the most common things that happens in American life. After 50, and the research is very clear, it is reversible, it is buildable, even late, even starting from almost nothing, even starting with one person, starting this week. I want to end with a picture that has stayed with me since I first read the Harvard data. 2 men, both at age 50, both healthy, both active, same decade, same country, similar circumstances. One of them was embedded in warm relationships. His wife, 3 close friends, a community he showed up to regularly. He could count on people, and they could count on him. The other had slowly drifted. Career, distance, divorce, relationships that had thinned year by year until there weren't many left. By 80, the Harvard data predicted this with striking accuracy. The first man had sharper memory, stronger physical health, a more intact sense of himself, not because of genetics, not because of what he ate, and because of who was in his life. Waldinger says, it's not too late to invest in those relationships. Whatever age you are, the best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. Tell me in the comments, who showed up for you when you needed it most? And when did you last tell that person what they mean to you? I read every comment at Golden Years Pulse. Next Tuesday, we're going into the longevity diet from a new angle. The specific foods that fight inflammaging fastest, including one that most Americans have been avoiding for 40 years. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I'm Thomas. I'll see you Tuesday.